Have you ever wondered why some people just can't get you out of their heads, even when they pretend you don't exist? And more, why does your quiet success seem to bother more than the scandalous failure of so many out there? This video will show you exactly why. But first, if you're watching this now, know that it was not by chance. This content found you because there is something in you that they also see and fear. And yes, you are about to understand why your existence has become the obsession of so many. So before I continue with this brutal truth, leave a like right now. It will further strengthen our message. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next chapters of this journey that goes far beyond the surface. And comment on the number 22 below, just so I know that you also feel that something inside you is awakening. Now take a deep breath, because what you're about to hear will change the way you see the eyes that follow you. There was a time when your name was just another whisper amidst the noise. They looked at you with disdain, as if there were nothing there to notice. They believed they had unraveled your destiny, limited, predictable, lackluster. They surreptitiously laughed at your attempts, mocked your choices, and prophesied your failure. But what they didn't know is that while they despised you aloud, you were quietly polishing yourself. Every criticism became fuel, every laugh became momentum. And now, ironically, the name they once ignored has become a constant echo in their minds. Today, you're a presence in every conversation, even if you're not physically present. Your name has become a topic of debate, of silent comparisons, of barely concealed envy. They can't stop talking about you, and the strangest thing is, they don't even realize their obsession has turned into an addiction. It's as if you've become the enigma that never stops haunting them. What hurts them most isn't your success. It's the fact that it happened despite their disbelief. You didn't just prove them wrong, you did it so resoundingly that they now live hostage to their own disbelief. This new reality isn't a coincidence. It's the direct consequence of your resilience, your unwavering faith in yourself, even when no one else believed in you. It's reflected in their eyes when you walk into a room, in the tension in their words when they try to belittle your achievements. Deep down, they know you won. And not by luck, but because you refused to accept the mediocre fate they swore was the only one possible. From an early age, everyone was taught to obey, to follow the formula, to walk in line, ask permission, and wait for the right moment, which never came. But for some reason, you viewed all this with suspicion. Something inside you screamed that this success manual made no sense, so you dared. You broke the rules quietly, without fanfare, and began forging a path that didn't exist before. What was seen as rebellion is now called genius, and it consumes you. They followed the instructions, did everything right, and still didn't get where they wanted. Meanwhile, you, the wrong one, achieved what seemed impossible to them. Their obsession began when they realized they couldn't understand you. How could someone who ignored all the guidelines achieve so much? How could someone who doesn't fit the rules become a role model? They feel betrayed by their own beliefs, and your existence has become living proof that they were wrong. The most painful thing for them isn't your boldness, it's the fact that it worked. Your victory is a silent affront to the system they defend. You exposed the fragility of everything that kept them safe. The script they followed with such discipline now seems obsolete, and every time you emerge, even silently, it's as if you're saying, "I did it my way, and it worked." And it's this silent scream that haunts them. In their minds, success was a gift bestowed by someone in power. They believed it was necessary to curry favor, align themselves with those in power, and please the system. But you showed them something they weren't prepared to see. It's possible to achieve anything without bowing down. Your rise happened without relying on their validation, and this dismantled the entire power play they'd built. You not only won, you bypassed the very structures they swore were indispensable. They expected you to beg for a chance, to plead for space, to accept the role assigned to you. But you simply created your own stage, and the audience came. You didn't have to invade anything, you built it. And this bothers them deeply, because for them, success is only legitimate if it passes the scrutiny of those who consider themselves authorities. Seeing you triumph alone forces them to face that perhaps they never had control over anything, only believed they did. The most devastating thing is the realization that your freedom is priceless, and they who sold their souls for crumbs of approval now realize they traded their authenticity for an illusion. Your independence has become an affront to their obedience. While they beg for the spotlight, you continue to illuminate your own path. And this breaks them because every step you take is a declaration. You never needed them. And this they will never get over. In an era of self-promotion, where everyone screams to be seen, you chose silence. While they spread noise, you planted roots. You didn't respond to criticism. You didn't counter provocations. You didn't fall into emotional traps. You just worked, silently, focused, with soul. And now, while they keep trying to prove something to the world, you've already proven everything simply by existing. Your silence has become your signature, and it destabilizes them. They expected confrontation. They wanted reactions. They needed drama, because without it, they don't know how to position themselves. But you've never played that game. And what drives those who observe you madder is realizing that your lack of response is worth more than 1,000 excuses. Every time you choose silence, you give away a dose of power they can't manipulate, and then they despair, creating narratives to fill the void your calm has left. Your silence is, in fact, a megaphone that screams authenticity, dominance, and strategy. It teaches, without words, that you don't argue with those who are busy winning. You silence their noise with presence, with results, with consistency. And no matter how much they try to belittle you, they know you won in the most elegant way possible, silently, without needing to prove anything, because everything is already there for everyone to see. Their curiosity grew silently, as did your rise. At first it was just disdain. Then came doubt, and now it's fascination. They feign indifference, but they're addicted to trying to understand how you did it. How did you grow without help? How did you build something so solid without selling your values? Behind the cold stares and acidic comments, there's a mind studying your every move, trying to uncover the secret you never revealed. They want your formula, but they're embarrassed to admit it. Because to do so, they'd have to accept that you're on a higher level than they thought possible. They want to understand your strength, your discipline, your vision. But more than that, they want the peace you exude, the lightness with which you handle victory, as if it were the natural consequence of a process invisible to their eyes. But they know they don't have the courage to ask you, because the answer would be too painful. What holds them back isn't just your skill, it's what you represent. A living reminder that perhaps the right path was always possible, but they chose the easy way. You are the unanswered question, the manual that was never written, the code that can't be cracked with shortcuts. And this uncertainty has become an obsession. They want the secret, but they can't bear to hear it. They made a point of fitting you into narrow categories. From the beginning, they labeled you incapable, as someone who would never surpass the boundaries of the ordinary. They projected their own insecurities onto you, constructing versions of you in their heads based on what they wanted you to be, not who you really were. And as you grew older, they retreated, confused, resentful, trying to understand how this foretold failure was now breaking all the boundaries they once swore were insurmountable. Your every step echoes like a silent slap in the face to their erroneous predictions. They said you were unfit for purpose, that you had no future, that you didn't have what it took. And today, each achievement of yours destroys another block of the distorted image they created. Your evolution didn't just defy their logic, it exposed how petty their judgments were. You didn't just win, you disavowed the right they thought they had to define you. And that's unbearable for those who thrive on controlling narratives. The most devastating thing for them isn't that they were wrong about you. It's knowing you never had to prove anything. You just moved on, without rancor, without crying out for justice, simply winning. And now they live with the open wound of knowing all their judgments were null and void, that while they talked, you were achieving. While they underestimated you, you were surpassing yourself. And now the whole world sees what they were unable to see from the beginning. We live in a world designed to reward those who obey, who conform, who accept without question. Structures are created not to accommodate, but to limit. And it was into this scenario that you emerged, not as someone willing to play the game, but as someone who chose to overturn the board. While everyone else went with the flow, waiting for validation, you forged your own path, not asking permission, but simply going. You didn't rebel out of revolt. You innovated out of conscience. And that's something the system never knew how to handle. The most disturbing thing for those still trapped in the gears of conformity is seeing someone thrive on their own. Your autonomy dismantles the entire narrative that fuels the current order. You've shown that you don't have to bend to grow, that you don't have to follow rotten rules to reach great heights. You've proven that the system only works for those who believe in it. And now those who always believed in obedience watch you, stunned, trying to understand how you managed to escape and, even worse for them, how you prevailed after that. They don't just want to understand you, they want to invalidate you. Because if you're right, their whole world crumbles. Their beliefs become lies, their ways become cages, their rules lose meaning. You've become a threat to the order they helped maintain. And the more you grow, the more evident it becomes that the system was never necessary. It was just a mental fence, and you leaped over it as if it never existed. You didn't just achieve what seemed unattainable, you made it seem simple. While everyone expected a long, painful process full of drama and despair, you emerged with a lightness that defied logic. You built silently, without fanfare, without victimhood, without self-promotion, and when the results appeared, they weren't ready. They couldn't understand how someone who didn't follow the norm, who didn't portray himself as a martyr, had achieved so much, and that doubt turned into pain. What bothers them most isn't your success. It's the absence of visible suffering. They've been conditioned to believe that only those who bleed in public, who cry loudly, who make a spectacle of their pain, achieve success. But you did it differently. While everyone waited for your downfall, you wrote chapters of victory with the calmness of someone who knows what they're doing. This disconcerts them, because it dismantles the idea that victory only comes through exposed suffering. You showed that it's possible to win with dignity, with silence, with class. Today they watch you, trying to find cracks. They look for proof that you were lucky, that you cheated, that at some point you'll fall, but they find none. And the more they look, the more they realize you simply did what no one else had the courage to do. Act with consistency, patience, and faith. The impossible wasn't impossible, just misinterpreted by those who never truly tried. And now, you're the constant reminder that the problem wasn't the challenge. It was their lack of courage. They grew up hearing that success had a format, a recipe, a manual to follow. From a young age, they were trained to believe there was only one legitimate path. And then you appeared. With your authenticity, your boldness, your own way of doing things. At first you were just an outlier, a curiosity, but as you grew you became a threat, because your presence was in itself a questioning of the absolute truths they had always defended. You've become a distorted mirror where they see themselves unfiltered. Your way of being exposes their rigidity. Your choices loosen the invisible chains that bind them. Your freedom is a silent denunciation of the bonds they refuse to let go. And this, more than anything, torments them. Because to accept their victory, they must admit they were deceived. They must acknowledge that they believed comforting lies while the truth lay before them, silently weaving its own path. The narrative that sustained their emotional security was dismantled by someone who never wanted to prove anything to anyone. And the more you prosper, the more fragile the illusion that there was only one way to live, to grow, to exist becomes. You broke not just a pattern, you shattered a collective belief. And now, those who defended the old narrative tooth and nail are forced to rewrite their own stories. But not everyone has the courage to do so, so they prefer to watch you from a distance, obsessively, waiting for you to stumble. The problem is, you don't stumble. You soar. Being yourself in a world that demands masks is in itself a revolutionary act. And you had that audacity. You never tried to please everyone, never molded yourself to fit into tight spaces, never hid behind edited versions of yourself. You were whole in your own way, with your light and your flaws exposed. And this level of authenticity, for many, is unbearable, because it forces others to confront how much they're pretending. They learn to survive by playing roles, smiling when they wanted to cry, accepting when they wanted to explode. And then you emerged, with your disconcerting presence, showing that it's possible to exist without needing to please. You're not perfect, and you've never tried to appear so, but you're genuine, and that, for those who live off performance, is a cruel mirror. Your authenticity shatters the facade they fight so hard to maintain. You reveal that acceptance doesn't depend on a mask. It depends on courage. Now they study you, not out of admiration, but out of discomfort. They try to understand how you manage to be who you are without losing respect, how you manage to make an impact without becoming corrupted. They wonder how you manage to live without masks, but they're afraid of the answer, because it would require them to take off theirs, and that's something not everyone is ready to do. While many waited for instructions, you created. While most looked outward for role models, you looked inward for purpose. Amidst the void, you saw opportunity. Where everyone else saw scarcity, you saw space to imagine, build, transform. Creating something from nothing isn't just about having ideas, it's about having the courage to bring the invisible to life. And that's the quality that unsettles them, because while they were busy copying ready-made formulas, you invented your own equation. And most impressively, it worked. What hurts most is the silent comparison. They who followed the pattern have nothing but recycled versions of what already existed. You who dared to be original are now the benchmark. Your creation forces them to face the truth. They lacked vision, initiative, and authenticity. It's not just envy. It's the dread of realizing they wasted too much time waiting for validation while you used that time to build value. You've become the difference between waiting for it to happen and making it happen. Today, your work, whatever it may be, is more than a personal achievement. It's a monument to what they chose not to believe, that it was possible, that things could be done differently, that there was a way to exist beyond repetition. You created something from nothing, and that nothing now has form, value, and impact. And they can only watch, wishing they had had the same courage. They watched you fall, and they remained silent, hoping you'd stay there. Some even smiled discreetly, certain this was your last chance. But you rose, not once, but many times, and you didn't come back the same. You came back bigger, stronger, more aware. Your resilience became your trademark, a strength they couldn't decipher, because they lived their lives believing that falling is the end. But you showed that, for those with purpose, falling is just a new beginning. They molded themselves to never make mistakes, never suffer, never face discomfort. They conformed to a safe but sterile existence. You did the opposite. You embraced risk, dove into the unknown, and made pain your teacher. Your resilience isn't just resistance, it's reinvention, and it dismantles the illusion they've nurtured for so long, that only the right thrive. You came to show that the resilient win more. What bothers them is that you never asked for understanding. You just followed. While they dramatized small adversities, you faced storms with unwavering eyes. Your resilience is a reminder that conformity was never a sign of strength, only of fear. And now, your every step is a reminder that those who survive the fall with dignity rise with greatness. The cruelest of comparisons is the one you can't avoid. Your presence, your achievements, your way of life have become the mirror that reflects everything they could have been and chose not to be. You are the reminder of all the decisions they postponed, all the risks they avoided, all the dreams they abandoned before even trying. And this hurts more than any external criticism, because it comes from within. They hid behind convincing excuses. They said it was the wrong time, that they lacked resources, that they had no support. You showed up and did everything with less, with more obstacles, with more resistance, and still you went further. This dismantles all the justifications they used to remain stagnant. Your life shows without words that their mediocrity wasn't imposed by the world. It was a choice. That's why your mere existence is unbearable, because there's no way to ignore you. You're not just a successful person, you're the living image of what they could have become. And instead of using that as motivation, they prefer to turn that truth into resentment. It's easier to hate you than to admit they betrayed themselves. And that's the pain that will haunt them forever. Knowing that what you have, they could have had too if they'd only had the courage. They made accusations, distorted facts, insinuated flaws. They expected you to react, to explain yourself, to play the dirty game of public validation. But you didn't give in. You left them to fend for themselves, and it was devastating. Because for them, silence is intolerable. Silence forces them to deal with their own noise. Your lack of response became the most powerful response of all. You knew you didn't need to justify yourself. Your journey already said it all. While they demanded explanations, you offered results. While they clamored for drama, you delivered evolution. Your silence became a force field, impenetrable, unshakable, irreversible, and the more you remained silent, the louder they screamed. Because they needed you to react to maintain the illusion of control. But you didn't react. And that was like denying air to someone living in conflict. Today, every word you don't say carries more weight than any argument, because you've understood that your energy isn't worth wasting on noise. You speak with actions, with accomplishments, with presence, and your lack of response has become a wall between you and the chaos they represent. They keep trying to provoke you, but all they find is silence, and that silence screams. It screams that you've won, without stooping to your level. There's an invisible line between admiration and obsession, and they crossed it without realizing it. At first, it was simple curiosity. Then came comparison. Now it's compulsion. You occupy their thoughts, their conversations, their pursuits, not by conscious choice, but because your trajectory has become the benchmark they can't ignore. You've become their benchmark, even for those who will never admit it out loud. The ironic thing is that you never had to work for it. You never sought attention, never asked for recognition. You simply lived your truth, day after day, with consistency and courage. And that's what captivated them. Because it's not fame that captivates, it's authenticity. It's not the stage that captivates, it's the journey to it. They're addicted to understanding you, because they can't stand the idea that someone could have achieved so much without the crutches they always thought were indispensable. And the most uncomfortable truth of all, you already won the moment they started watching you more than they watched themselves. Your victory isn't just in what you've achieved. It's in the mental space you occupy within those who tried to erase you. They may even deny it. They may even criticize. But the fact that they're watching you, studying you, commenting on you, says it all. You've won. And you've become the obsession that keeps them from sleeping peacefully.